from Taiwan, I'm Tiffany Wong with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. China may have found a way to get boots on the ground in Taiwan. New images have emerged on social media of what are being called invasion barges, mobile harbors used to land troops and supplies. Our defense reporter Jaime Ocon is live in our newsroom in Taipei. Jaime, what do these images show?
Well, that's right. So on Thursday, some images were posted on Chinese social media site Weibo, with one video showing what appears to be a specialized barge that could be used for an invasion of Taiwan. Now, in January, a military news site, Naval News, was the first to report that China was building about 5 of these barges. These are mini ports that some analysts say are specifically used for an amphibious attack potentially on Taiwan. Now, TaiwanPlus has obtained satellite imagery taken a few days ago near southern China, which appears to show that same kind of barge used in a small amphibious exercise. Now, some people are concerned because China has been trying to find ways to get boots on the ground here in Taiwan in the event of an attack. Now, this would mean transporting hundreds of thousands of troops and equipment across the Taiwan Strait, either through the air or by sea, and it's still unclear whether Beijing has those kinds of capabilities. But China has been practicing that kind of operation for decades. Observers are now saying that if Beijing uses these kinds of barges, that Beijing could actually pull that operation off. Now, for more on this, I spoke to Tom Sugaard. He's an adjunct senior fellow at the Center for a New American Security, a think tank based in Washington, D.C.
The big surprise, and it was a surprise to me that we learned today, is that these apparently are intended to be linked together to form one much longer transfer assembly from the shore to the sea. So instead of 3 different landing points where you could project essentially a pier something like 300 meters out into the water, we're seeing now more like 800 to 850 meters that this thing could get out in the water, potentially for much larger areas of the Taiwanese coast. Now being able to get a pier from the shore all the way out deep enough water where you can have these ferries pull up and unload onto them. I think these will be much quicker to be set up, where you can wind up with a lot less warning, where they could potentially be moved if they need to for weather or threats, where they're not nearly as much of a fixed target as these normal floating piers are. Because these vessels are self-propelled, it appears. They're self-propelled. I imagine they're probably highly automated. And they basically you can just drive up and they lower these legs and lift themselves out of the water. And then you bolt the next one and connect to it, and the next one and connect to it. It really is quite something.
And Tom, well, we've known for a while that China is trying to increase that capability to transport soldiers and equipment across the Taiwan Strait in the event of a war with Taiwan. How concerning is this new development?
Well, I've said for several years now with respect to the use of roll-on, roll-off ferries that in the absence of the China civilian sea lift, if you're asking the question, and it's an important one, does China have the ability to invade Taiwan without civilian shipping, with only the PLA Navy's amphibious assault ships? The answer is clearly no. They don't have enough sea lift. But if you add in China's civilian shipping, and this is not theoretical, these civilian companies, the ferry companies, and roll and roll off vehicle carrier companies, they're organized auxiliaries of the Chinese military. They regularly practice. Their ships are built to defense standards. This is not something that they might think about doing someday. They are practicing doing it. To the question, can China invade Taiwan? I think goes from a no to maybe. Maybe they do, maybe they can. Maybe they do have the sea lift to do it. I think it's unlikely that these 6 vessels by themselves provide the capacity to successfully invade Taiwan. But what we have to remember is that China has literally dozens of shipyards that could probably build these. And these 6 were built by one shipyard in about 6 months, 6 to 8 months.
Now, we've reached out to Taiwan's Defense Ministry for a comment, but they have not yet responded. And it's important to remember that China's President Xi Jinping has made it a mandate for his military to be ready by 2027 to annex Taiwan by force if needed. Now, that year, 2027, is not a certain year. That the conflict is certain, but these new types of capabilities, these barges that Beijing is building, does move it more towards that goal to be a more modern fighting force and ultimately an even bigger security concern for Taiwan.
Thanks, Jaime. That was Jaime Ocon in our Taipei newsroom. Military courts may be coming back to Taiwan over a decade after their abolition. President Lai Ching-te says Chinese infiltration of the military means that they're needed again and that they have limited jurisdiction. But opposition lawmakers are questioning Lai's motives. John Van Trieste reports.
Military courtrooms like this one have been silent for 11 years, but they may soon see trials again as President Lai Ching-te pushes to put them back into use. In 2024 alone, Taiwan caught 15 active service members and 28 retired veterans spying for China. China claims Taiwan, and besides threatening to invade, it also tries to weaken Taiwan from within by infiltrating its military. President Lai says it's time to tackle this threat with military law, ending the decade-long hiatus. He says the military courts would only deal with military crimes.
恢复军事审判制度，让军法官回到第一线，与检调司法机关共同协力，处理现役军人涉犯叛乱、力敌、泄密、废除职务、抗命等军事犯罪之刑事案件。
Taiwan spent close to 40 years under martial law, and in the minds of some who lived through this authoritarian period, these military courts have unpleasant associations. But there's more recent history, too. The 2013 death of conscript Hong Zhongqiu in military custody set off a movement that effectively shut the courts down. Since 2014, they've only been used for mock trials during drills simulating wartime. Restarting court-martials will take the legislature's backing. The administration wants 5 changes to the law to make it happen. But the 2 opposition parties, who together have a legislative majority, are strongly against the idea. In the biggest opposition party, the Kuomintang, some question Lai's motives for trying to reopen the courts.
这个议题是可以讨论。现在恢复军事法庭就没有军中人权的问题了吗？那么，请问一下，赖清德总统认为我们要进入战时的状态了吗？
And some in the Taiwan People's Party say they see signs of flip-flopping in the administration.
就是我们现任的国防部长顾立雄讲的，我们绝对不允许军法复辟。 现在是赖清德总统狠狠打脸了我们的国防部长。
That's a view the opposition voiced again on Friday. But the defense minister says his long-held position against military courts hasn't changed. He says the new courts would be different from those of the past, with fair due process.
我们现在要重新打造的一个军事审判制度，是符合一个公平法院设计的审判制度，而要挥别过去那一段 被人诟病、不被人信任的军事审判。
But the skepticism from the opposition is setting this issue up to be a major point of debate in Taiwan's politics. Chris Ma and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Investigators have searched the home of leading Kuomintang lawmaker Kun-chi for evidence of bribery. They suspect Fu may have sent a hairstyling kit worth around $300 to fellow KMT lawmakers to win favor during a recent election. They say the money for this gift may have come from China. Fu says he has not done anything wrong. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he supports a ceasefire in the country's war on Ukraine, but whether a deal can meet his demands is still up in the air.
Potential for peace in Ukraine, as Russian President Vladimir Putin considers a ceasefire deal after more than 3 years of war.
Согласны с предложениями прекратить боевые действия. Но исходим из того, что это прекращение должно быть таким, которое привело бы к долгосрочному миру и устранило бы первоначальные причины этого кризиса.
Ukraine earlier this week agreed to a 30-day ceasefire deal brokered by U.S. President Donald Trump and his aides in Saudi Arabia. But Putin is still trying to keep the upper hand, saying he needs to discuss details with the U.S., raising questions as to whether he will actually accept a deal.
Тим більше, що зараз ми всі почули з Росії дуже передбачувані, дуже маніпулятивні слова Путіна у відповідь на ідею тиші на фронті. Він фактично готує відмову станом на зараз. Путін, звісно, боїться сказати прямо президенту Трампу, що хоче продовжувати цю війну. Хоче вбивати українців.
And on the ground, skepticism too from ordinary Ukrainians, some fearing that Putin will use any ceasefire to regroup Russian forces before attacking again.
Довготривалий мир, я думаю, що це, скоріш всього, на кілька років для переозброєння та нарощення сили.
Ну, складно сказати. Я думаю, що перемир'я було б добре в будь-якому випадку, тому що припинення бойових дій і перестали б гинути люди. Я думаю, що це було б позитивно, але які будуть наслідки далі у цьому питанні.
As Ukrainians closely follow the latest in negotiations, they'll be thinking about what comes next and what decisions made in Moscow and Washington mean for them. Andy Hsieh and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
You might not expect a lot of pep and verve at a funeral, but in central Taiwan, an all-female marching band is playing the old hits for the newly departed. Jonathan Kaplan has the story.
There's no sports victory, no grand opening. Today, like most days they work, the Dazhong Women's Band is playing a funeral.
乐队它的作用也就是说，有时候热闹一点也对了，因为年纪有了，年纪上了80几岁才会这样。你要是50、60岁，一般人不敢这样，会被人家笑，讲说那么年轻走了，你还那么虚张。
Brass, drums, miniskirts, and twirling batons may seem out of place at a somber ceremony, but as joyful celebrations of life gain popularity at funerals in the West, Taiwan's spin on sending off the deceased is already a tradition. Band leader Xu Yazi married into it.
大众女子乐团是早期是婆婆在她23岁的时候成立的，然后我是后来嫁到我婆家这边，然后接婆婆的工作这样子，所以大众女子乐团应该，我大概算一下，应该有50年的历史。
The work has its demands. Band members are no strangers to the wee hours. Preparations sometimes beginning well before dawn.
今天早上是4点半出发，他们大概就是要提早10分钟到集合地点集合。
Despite the rigors of playing in a funeral marching band, band commander Wong doesn't like to complain.
现在年轻人比较怕，就是没办法早起啊，最困难。但是其实只要习惯就好了，对，不然其实我觉得音乐这种东西好像说困难也没有到很困。
With one of the lowest birth rates in the world, Taiwan is set to become a super-aged society in 2025, meaning more than 20% of the population will be aged 65 or older. Demand for flashy funerals may rise with the aging populace. Band leader Xu hopes young musicians will continue the tradition.
这种工作是需要有年轻人传承，对，因为这种工作是要有活力才有办法展现出来的一种工作嘛，对啊，所以说我还是很希望鼓励年轻人可以加入我们的行列。
过程一定会很辛苦，但是当你成功的时候，你会觉得这辛苦是值得的，对。
If you happen to live to a ripe old age in central Taiwan, your next of kin may someday call upon the Dazhong Women's Band to march you away to a different beat. Dolphine Chen and Jonathan Kaplan for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. For more stories from Taiwan and beyond, visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow us on social media. Finally, check out this exhibition by Hervé de Rosa at a museum in France. I'm Tiffany Wong. Take care and see you next time.